from Israel in the Galilee. That's the place Hezbollah threatens to invade and destroy. And it's the 25th of June. It's 9:44. We've got some more heat coming back into us today, or on us. It's 83 already. We're going to hit 97. It's terrible again. It'll drop to 95 tomorrow, then 97 Thursday, then 101 on Friday, 98 on Saturday, and then Sunday we start getting temperature drops into the low 90s for a while. Well, that's Israel. It's terrible weather. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Believe me. There's a few places in Israel that have good weather. Okay? Not many. When you live right on the ocean, you're going to get a good 10 degrees or more temperature drop. When you live up in altitude, moderate altitude, like the Golan Heights, you'll get the same 10-degree drop, but of course you're right near the fighting. And if you go live on the mountains like Safed, you'll get probably 15 or 20 degree temperature drop, but probably 15. You'll get a good substantial drop. The problem with all this is that you can't live in Safed in the winter easily. It gets snow. It's really cold. The Golan Heights doesn't normally get snow. It could, but it gets cold. So to live in Israel without spending a fortune, to get a nice place, a city on the ocean, or live right next door to Lebanon, you need to winter in some place like, I don't know where, the south, like Eilat, where the temperature is pretty idyllic in the winter. And then in the summer, like probably around May, move to Safat, so you need two houses. I can't afford that, but that's the way you can make Israel work. Nahariya is on the Mediterranean, north of Haifa. It's a beautiful little community right on the Mediterranean with great beaches and everything. It doesn't have tourist attractions, so it's kind of low key, but it's 7 miles from Lebanon, and that's within Katusha range, so it's got its issues, right? So Israel, I'm sure when we hit the year of redemption, we'll have much better weather. This weather is punishment weather. Okay, what we're going to cover today is Israel's telling Hezbollah and Lebanon, we have weapons we've never used, you don't know what they are, you're not going to believe what they do to you. The Bible says God's going to deal with the heathen, the Gentiles, is the lousy English translation, like they never knew before. Okay? Now, we're going to break down what that is. We're going to cover the tunnel system in Lebanon that Hezbollah has, and we're going to talk about Iran and Russia and China and North Korea and all of that, okay? And we're going to mix Bible prophecy in with it as we proceed, okay? So, I'm going to really lay out for you what these secret weapons probably are going to do. No, they're not nukes. Okay. I'm going to take a fast trip into the live stream and make sure we have sound and picture, and then put a few quick posts up in the chat. Okay? And make sure we have sound and picture, and then put a few quick posts up in the chat. Okay? And make sure we have sound and picture, and then we got sound and picture. I can answer questions if you want to post them in the chat, or if you want to do it more privately. My email address will be up in the chat momentarily, and it's in the description box under the video on the lowest line down. You can email me the questions, and I usually check email during the broadcast, and I'll post the question up there. Okay? All right, give me a minute, and I will be with you. I'm here doing the postings, and I also am trying to give people a chance to come in, get the notice, and come in before we start. Not a lot of time, but another minute or two. And I think it'll be worth it, because you're not going to hear an analysis of this anywhere else, I don't think. Almost finished. No, I'm just going to put my email address up and we'll get going. And that's not going to take much time at all. Got a typo. Okay. All right, I got it. And we had 9 people come in and go out. They're very impatient, so they could miss it as far as I'm concerned. They're not very serious, I'm sure. Being a Bible-believing site, I'm going to do some praise. I cannot control if you praise or do not praise or whatever. I'm just going to do some. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. So, as probably most of you know, Hezbollah has threatened to destroy Israel, invade the Galilee, destroy the Galilee, and the Golan Heights. Now, this is something I doubt you're going to pick up. The rabbis in Israel are teaching the people about a prophecy, but it's not a real prophecy. It's from the Talmud. The Talmud is not the Bible. The Talmud contradicts the Bible. The Talmud says Yeshua is not the Messiah. He's not a prophet. He's not the Son of God. He was a witch and a bastard. Okay? That's what they teach. Now, we, of course, don't want to put any credibility in the Talmud at all. But, and you should avoid any of these characters in the church world or Messianic congregation world that start talking about the Talmud, that's a sign of them being a false believer or extremely dumb. Now, what they say is coming from some rabbi 1800 years ago, and it says that when you see the Galilee and the Golan Heights get destroyed, Mashiach ben David is going to come. The Talmudic rabbis deceived the people into thinking that there are two messiahs that could come. Mashiach ben David, which is the son of David, or Mashiach ben Yosef, or something like that. I don't pay that close attention to it. I tried reading it about 35 years ago or 40 years ago, and I went through a lot of it, but it's so silly, you can't concentrate. It's ridiculous, you know. Okay. So, they're teaching the people that the Galilee and the Golan Heights are going to be destroyed. And then their Messiah is going to come. They read the prophets, and it talks about the son of David. And, of course, we know Yeshua was from the line of David, so he's the son of David. And we also know that David will not lack a man to sit on the throne. So the anointed prince in the next temple, read Ezekiel 45, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Read the whole chapter, you'll find out all about the anointed prince. He's also from David, because the Bible says David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne. David himself is not going to be resurrected. The anointed prince dies. If you read Daniel 9, it's either 25 or 26, the anointed prince gets cut off. And that's in the Gog Magog days, which is going to start 60-some years from now. So, it's elected unto man to die only once, and David died. And the anointed prince dies again. And Yeshua can't die. So it's not Yeshua and it's not David. Okay. Who is it? It's an Israelite that's more than likely here now, I'm sure. And is of the line of David that Jehovah selected. I don't know who it is. I don't have any further information about this person. Okay. So, this explains why the ultra-Orthodox are having demonstrations and violence with the police over the draft. They don't want to get drafted because they're going to be deployed up into the Galilee near Lebanon by the Golan Heights, and they figure they're all going to get killed. So this is causing a lot of problems in Israel, and I don't think any of these churchianity goofballs or any I know about this or would even tell you if they did. They have threatened to move all 1.2 million of them out of Israel if the draft takes hold. But I think at this point in time is too short for that to happen. My wife came back from her little mini vacation for a few days, and we talked about Israelis leaving Israel, which there was an abundance amount of at the airport. But then she also told me there's a massive amount of Israelis coming back to Israel. So what I think they did was sort of kind of like what she did. They wanted a break, and they just take a vacation outside of Israel for a while to, you know, unwind. Over 8 months of steady attacks on Israel coming from the Iraqi and Syrian militias, Iran with a massive rocket and drone barrage, the Houthis with their lame attempts to get us, and Hezbollah and Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And, you know, it takes its toll. You know, a lot of Israelis are quite stressed right now. Okay. And of a lot of them go to the synagogues and they could be hearing this nonsense. And it is nonsense, okay? So, the weapons at the airport in Beirut, Lebanon. The backstory that they're not telling you is several whistleblowers went public about this. Some of them worked at the airport, and they said that we're seeing big crates come in on jets from Iran that are all sealed up, and we're being told not to inspect them or have anything to do with them. And we're scared because they're turning the airport into a battle zone, and they're making it a legitimate target for Israel. One of the whistleblowers knew somebody in customs and said, we're told not to inspect this cargo. It's obvious what it is. Now, in the Lebanon war in 2006, Israel struck the Beirut airport runways in 17 places. Okay. Now, that is a massive amount of damage to repair, especially since if you go and start trying to repair it, they're going to stop your reconstruction, or Israel would, and also if you finished it, they'd just blow it up again. Israel's also destroyed airports in Aleppo and Damascus where Iran brings weapons in. So this is Iran's old trick, okay? There was a thought that by some of these people in Lebanon, whistleblowers, that Iran or Hezbollah or both of them would launch the missiles out of the airport in Beirut, thinking Israel wouldn't want to hit the airport. The other hidden fact they don't talk about is the fact that these Lebanese people need that airport. The Beirut airport is probably the only international airport up there, or a substantial airport for big jets. They need this to evacuate Lebanon during the war. Okay? Israel has not attacked the airport. The Lebanese government proper, fearing that Israel would hold them complicit in assisting Hezbollah, said, there's nothing there. We invite you to come and inspect it. Well, it probably just took them a brief period of time to move everything away to another location. How long would that take? 8 hours, 12 hours. And how long would it take for anybody to get over there and inspect it? A couple of days. Who's going to inspect it, for instance? Now, this doesn't mean that the Lebanese government is working with Hezbollah as much as it means they're afraid of Hezbollah. What Hezbollah would do is assassinate them and their families. If they go into hiding, their whole family has to go into hiding. For how long? Years? Okay. So we know now that Lebanon, or Hezbollah in Lebanon, has advanced weapons from Iran. But only as good as what Iran has. Now the Houthis in Yemen have been getting advanced weapons from Iran, and they've been attacking American warships with success, and a number of merchant marine vessels with success. And they did it again yesterday, I think. They're not stopping. Most of the shipping, most of the shipping has ceased from the Red Sea, I would guess 90-95%. So now they're targeting ships in the Indian Ocean, and they did a hit the other day. So they are, in the eyes of America, and probably the European Union and other countries out of control. Completely off the wall, out of control. Okay? Completely. They're crazy enough to start exerting themselves like a world power. Okay. Now, so Hezbollah has the weapons that the Houthis have been using to attack military vessels, and with some success, and merchant marine ships. So this will enable Lebanon to carry through on their threat to attack shipping in the Mediterranean near Lebanon. Now, Russia probably likes this because they have a big Navy base in Latakia, Syria, which is not very far from Lebanon at all. So it gives them a little layer of protection, so to speak. Also, I feel confident that Hezbollah will attack ships if they can get them to them. And they also will shoot missiles at Cyprus, because they too are crazy. These are the criminally insane, and they will behave like criminally insane. So, America has the Dwight D. Eisenhower in the Mediterranean, and it's going to be staying there for a time. I don't know how long. Shut up! The Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier and the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier are chugging to the Eastern Mediterranean now. Probably Friday, Saturday, they'll be here. They probably will be within missile range by Wednesday. Today's Tuesday or Thursday. Something like that. No! So, this gives America probably someplace around 210 to 240 fighter planes, plus refueling tankers, AWACS, and transportation planes and things like that. Okay, so these ships will always have escort vessels, which would be destroyers and missile cruisers. When things are not so stressful, they'll usually put two destroyers, 2 missile cruisers with an aircraft carrier. But under these circumstances, they may go to 6 or even 8. I think 4 is minimalistic. 6 sounds about right. So that would mean the 2 aircraft carriers coming over here are going to bring 12 more warships with them. Plus submarines, I'm sure, but they don't talk about those. Probably 2 or 3 submarines. Probably 2. They don't need a lot of submarines right now. And the way they'll help Israel is they will attack Lebanon, Hezbollah. And they're going to try to control the damage that Lebanon takes to make France happy. I'm going to take a break for a minute. We'll go through this in detail. Be right back. Excuse me, I got to get out. Thank you for blocking me. See, what is important that you got to understand is that Hezbollah is in a veiled way using human shields like Hamas in Gaza, but less, way more discreet, not as open. Okay? They're not putting missiles in schools and hospitals and stuff like that. Although they did use the airport. At least we don't think they are. So it puts a deterrent on, Israel and other countries attacking them because they don't want to destroy the people in Lebanon. They're genuinely are not interested in having a war with Israel. So, where are we at? So, just like Yemen attacked in the Indian Ocean, Hezbollah will attack in the Mediterranean, and it more than likely hit Cyprus. That will send a signal to the nations of the world that if they want to mess with Lebanon, it's going to be a big time job, which it isn't. So America will give weapons to Israel. They will rain missiles down on Hezbollah, which is in South Lebanon, where the civilian population is really no longer there, from their destroyers and missile cruisers. These boats typically have 16 missile launching tubes, and they hold a total of 64 missiles. So 64 times 6 is a lot of missiles. Yeah, it'd probably be cruise missiles, smart ones. Or a 500-pound warhead. Okay? How much good is this going to do? Well, I'll explain. Hezbollah has a tunnel network for many decades near Israel, and probably up higher up in Lebanon. We don't know a whole lot about their tunnel network, but we could assume it's as good as the one that Hamas had, which is a problem. So when the missiles and bombs start raining in, Hezbollah goes underground. Now, you can destroy the tunnels with the 2,000-pound bombs, bunker busters. 2,000 pounds is a bunker buster, 5,000 pounds is also a bunker buster. America has them that go up to 25,000 pounds. Israel doesn't. I don't think Israel has any planes, or maybe very few, that can carry a 5,000-pound bomb. And I don't think they have bombs that big, but they have 2,000-pound bombs. Which, if you're going to do multiple hits in the tunnel area, you're probably going to bust the tunnel up eventually, because of the shock wave. Now, if the tunnel's 180 or 250 feet down, you're not. But the tunnels usually aren't going to go, they're going to not be more than 90 feet, usually 60 or even less. They're going to be with concrete walls and floors and ceilings with steel girders supporting it. So it's not that easy. But if we assume they're going to have at least as much as Hamas, which was 300 miles of tunnels, we might be able to drive them in the tunnels, but it's going to be a massive effort to destroy all those tunnels. Right? So now comes Israel with the weapons they're going to use against Hezbollah that they never saw or heard of, that are going to be extremely devastating. I'm certain one of these weapons is going to be a massive amount of surface-to-surface missiles. These are going to be substantial in size. They're probably going to have warheads of 1,000 pounds or more. Some might have 500 pounds. Some might have 12, 15, 1,800 pounds. They're going to be pretty devastating and highly accurate and smart. And these will be used when Hezbollah is above ground. These missiles will cause a lot of destruction and kill a lot of Hezbollah. When you're talking about weapons with 50, 100 kilo warheads, the destruction with a missile impacts is going to be pretty bad for maybe as much as 50 feet. Well, you start talking 1,000, 1,500 pound warhead, destruction is way more than that. The blast force could throw people into trees and rocks and kill them. Shrapnel, all kinds of stuff. Lebanon would decide the best thing for them to do is now to go underground, but they got to be careful, because if they're all underground, Israel rolls in with the tanks, mobile artillery, armored vehicles, and infantry covering themselves with jets and helicopters for air support. Now, they find the tunnels and they destroy the entrance exits of the tunnels, which means that the terrorists in the tunnels are trapped like rats. Okay? That's probably plan A. Okay? But there's another level. Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, the Houthis in Yemen, and I think one or two other countries have said they're going to send their terrorists, Iran-backed proxies and satellites, send their terrorists over to Lebanon to help Hezbollah in the thousands. They haven't done it yet. The criminally insane Nasrallah is saying, oh, we don't really need the help right now, but thanking them. So they may never send them. They may just be trying to scare Israel. What good is a soldier with an AK-47 or an RPG going to do on the battlefield there when it's going to be artillery, missiles, rockets, bombs? What is he going to do? Nothing. Get killed. Now, Israel could stop them because most of it would come in through Syria by Lebanon, and they could just bomb it over there. We bombed Syria all over the place already, so we just bomb them when they get near the Lebanon border. They know that. So they might get killed and have no effect whatsoever on the war. But let's talk about the real vulnerabilities of Lebanon in the tunnels. When you go in a tunnel and you're 60, 90, 150 or whatever feet down in the earth, you don't have any air in there. Oh, when you dig the tunnel, you're going to have air for, if there's 3 or 4 guys in there, you might have air for a couple of days even, but if you're stuffing soldiers in there to get out of air attacks, air supply is critical. Okay? So what they do up on the surface is they wind up connecting to the electric grid, or having a generator that runs on diesel fuel at the surface to bring air in with fans into ducts, like air conditioning ducts. Now, they most likely would not put the generator inside the tunnel because the generator is going to burn diesel. Or maybe they could set one up on propane, but it's going to create toxic fumes in the tunnel because it's poorly ventilated. Most of them are rather big and they're running on diesel. I don't believe they have propane running. You know. So, the fumes from the burning of the diesel would kill them. Would get them real sick anyway. So, usually those things are placed outside the tunnel, near the tunnel. And the big fan is being run and it sucks air in. They also need electricity down there because they have internet usually. Well, the internet's out and the internet will be out. The GPS is out in Lebanon and will stay out. But air, they can't do that. Israel is fighting for its existence right now. America and France don't want to see Lebanon getting demolished. Bible prophecy shows us that it's not really going to get very demolished. It says, Lebanon, open your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn. And then shortly after this is over, we use the box tree, the fir tree, and the cypress tree from Lebanon to decorate the area around the next temple. So, putting both together, I don't think the damage to the nation of Lebanon is that substantial. So how do we get there? Well, this brings us to chemical and biological weapons. Okay? That's the perfect tunnel killer. We could not use this type of approach in Gaza because they were 50,000 Gaza and PIJ amidst 2.5 million Gazan civilians. So we would have been dropping the civilians like flies. However, in Lebanon, the civilians have evacuated north of the Litani River, which is 17 or 18 miles north of the border. We're not terribly concerned about the tunnels that are 80 or 150 miles away from the border because they can't really be used to do much against us. They can put missile launchers inside underground structures, not too far down, maybe 12, 15 feet. And the tunnel, well, it's not really a tunnel so much as it's a pit. And they have electricity in there and they put a missile launcher in there. And they have it covered up with boards, with plants on it and stuff to make it look like it's just part of the landscape. We saw this in Gaza. Then they move it out of the way, elevate the launcher, and launch. Then they move the wood with the trees and the plants on top back to camouflage it. Putting a missile launcher down 100 feet is not. That means you got to shoot a vertical launch pretty much. There's no point digging it down that deep because you still have to open it, you know. So that's another problem we have. They could dig a large pit and put 12 or 15 good missiles in there, launch them one at a time, and then cover it up. So they're a little bit harder to hit, but not that hard, because our computers and radar would catch the GPS and the launch, and we would just rain artillery or missiles down on the site, and you would hit it. They can't protect these things. They can't put 60 feet of dirt on top of it. How are you going to get the launch? Well, they can make a little 3-foot tube through the dirt, and then you got to hit the tube. I don't think so. They got to elevate the missile at an angle. It's got to be above surface. The actual launching ramp has to be above the surface so the missile can come out and clear it. Okay? Now, the most popular chemical weapon in today's world with terrorists is chlorine gas. It's lethal. It's cheap. It's easy to make. Bashar Assad in Syria uses it. He puts it in these little barrels that are maybe 30 inches, 36 inches, maybe by 24. And they take them up in helicopters and throw the barrels down. It bursts open and the chlorine goes to work in a gaseous form. And if you breathe it in, you'll get very, very sick, and many people will also die right there. And if they're in close proximity to the barrel bomb breaking, they're going to die. There's no noise, there's no muzzle flash. The only warning you have is if you're sitting right near there or standing right near there and see it. Now, if you did and you ran away and you didn't breathe it in, nothing will happen to you. Now, I don't know if Israel wants to use chlorine gas. There's many other kinds of gas that can be used. It just requires a higher sophistication level. Mustard gas, what was used in World War I. Too much cayenne. Mustard gas was World War I's favorite. And it absolutely is deadly, and it's blinding, everything. You got to get it on your skin. It causes things like boils, burns, if you will. It blinds the eyes. It's pretty bad. If you get it in the lungs, you could suffer permanent or semi-permanent pulmonary damage. But they don't use it anymore. Now, will Israel suffer international repercussions if they use chlorine gas? Yeah, they would. Would the nations come and surround Israel to attack it after this happened? Well, that's a very decent description of Zechariah 12, the siege on Judah and Jerusalem. So that could be a possible. I say just a possible, but it could be. Israel's afraid that Hezbollah wants to rain missiles down on its soldiers by the border, push into Israel, go house to house, rape the women till they're dead, burn the babies, burn the people, shoot the people, torture the people, cut their heads off on down the line. Okay? If not stopped, they'll go all over Israel and do it. They're looking for a Holocaust. What do you think? So, in the minds of the... Sorry, I had an internet glitch on the modem. Please pray we don't get more of those glitches. So Israel's thinking it's better to be alive and then deal with the blowback from the nations. Now, if America's involved in the attack on Lebanon, the UK will be, and probably France and other countries. So the chances of anything coming out of the UN Security Council against Israel are not that high because they'll veto it. Okay. Now, the blowback is going to come if they use lethal gas. Biological weapons are not very good. Chemical weapons like ricin is one, chlorine gas, have an instant, not an instant, the effect is seconds or minutes. Okay? If you were going to get like anthrax powder, you probably wouldn't get sick for like 2 days, 3 days, I don't know, something like that. You'd get gradually sicker, you'd have anthrax. There's antibiotics, namely Cipro, that stop anthrax. Other antibiotics do. The soldiers might not feel that good after they take the Cipro for the first day or two, but that could be offset the way America offset things in Vietnam. They gave the soldiers benzodrine and dexedrine, speed. Oh yeah, I'm telling you, I know this happened. In Vietnam, when they would go out on patrol, they'd go for 3 days. And that's as long as you could take the dexedrine, benzodrine without much sleep. They'd go out for 3 days, they'd eat these bennies. The truck drivers used to call them West Coast turnarounds. So they could drive from the East Coast to the West Coast and come back all on speed, and then they would crash, usually for 24 hours of sleep or 18 hours or something like that. It's an idiot's game, you know, but in war, these pills were in the survival kits that they gave to pilots in case they had to crash land in the water. They had a little bit of water, food and stuff, fishing hooks, signal mirrors, whatever. They put a supply of these pills in there. And they did it also with sailors that had to abandon ships so they could keep themselves awake if they had to for a while, like during a storm or something, I don't know. So the soldiers would go out on patrol in Vietnam for 3 days. And if they go to sleep at night, they could never wake up. So they took benzodrine, and unfortunately a lot of them smoked pot too. And the combination with the hallucinations, I think, would be very frightening, but that's what these kids did. So the military uses stimulants, all militaries will use it. So that could easily be dispensed to the soldiers during the first couple of days while they recover from a biological attack. Okay? I don't think biological weapons are going to be used. There's stability problems, the efficiency takes days to work. It's not anything that's really that good. The people have rumored that Israel has built biological weapons that work on DNA. It would just get the Arabs. I don't think such a thing exists. And then I don't believe it. Okay. So what can Israel do? Okay. Some of you know when I was a young guy, I was in law enforcement, bounced around different jobs for a couple of years, and went back to graduate school and got a master's in business, and that was it for me in law enforcement. But there are weapons that the military and the police had back in the 60s that were non-lethal chemical weapons, and I am 100% that these exist. The military used it, police had it, but as the anti-Vietnam War protests grew by probably 1971 or 72, the police wouldn't use it anymore. But I absolutely remember what these things do. Okay, it's a gaseous weapon. They'd put it in a grenade launcher, you know, and they'd fire it, you know, like a tear gas grenade launcher, and they'd fire it. It would land and emit this smoke or a gas. And it wouldn't have been as smoky, it would have been more gaseous. You wouldn't see it. When you breathed it in, it hit your nerve centers. And what it did is it caused immediate diarrhea. In other words, you got stomach cramps right away and you had to let it out. You couldn't stop it from coming out. And number one came out, and vomiting. Okay? This was designed to be used in an event of a bad protest, like protesters were trying to take over the IRS building, which they did in 69-ish in Washington, D.C. I was down there for job interviews, and I went into the IRS building because I had an uncle that worked there. I went to see him, and the whole place smelled of tear gas. So they were in the building, and they had tried them out. They did it with tear gas. If things get bad, they would use this. So what happens to the victim is something comes on them all of a sudden with cramps in their stomach, and they let loose and they start vomiting. I would assume they're going to be dehydrated because it's going to be like repeated vomiting until there's nothing left. So dehydration would probably set in. Of course, they soiled themselves. And the idea of this is to make them feel so miserable that they just run away and go home. That was the idea with this. Now, before pepper spray, what the police had was called mace, M-A-C-E. It came in a little can. The police usually had bigger ones. I remember I worked with a guy in a patrol car. He used to squirt mosquitoes with it in the car. It's not like, and the air conditioning didn't really get us. We'd put the window down. It wouldn't really do much to us. I sprayed myself with mace to see what would happen. For instance, I sprayed it on a paper towel and then put it up and inhaled it. Not a lot. You get, burning in the sinuses and stuff, it'll burn it. If you shoot it in the eye, it'll burn the eyes and cause a lot of tearing, closing the eyes. But what the police were trained to do with it is spray it across the upper torso and the clothing of the people. And then the fumes just keep coming out, and it causes irritation in the throat, irritation in the sinuses, so you start, like drooling out of your nose, irritation in the eyes. And if you're smart, you would take the shirt off or the jacket off or whatever you had, okay? Women, of course, are reluctant to do this because they'd be half naked or in their bra or something. The idea was to spray it on the protesters and demonstrators to make them feel miserable and leave. And they would go home, throw the clothes away or wash them real quick and take a shower for a long time and wash it all off. And it would get off and they would be recovered. And nobody got real sick from that. Okay? And that wasn't highly effective. If you had a combative guy coming at you, sprayed him with mace, it wouldn't do much. If he was drunk on drugs, it wouldn't do much. The pepper spray is much better. But still, a combative druggie or drunk, it doesn't work that effectively. So they eventually got to the taser, which is highly effective. Okay, so what Israel might have is a gas like what the U.S. military had to cause people to vomit and throw up. But I mean, it's you're going to keep having the diarrhea and the vomiting until there's nothing left in your system. And then you might have what they call dry heaves. It's really, and this is likely to cause fatigue, most likely, dizziness, dehydration, headaches, vision blurring, and so forth. Now, the blowback from the nations on this wouldn't be that severe. Okay? Probably next to nobody would die. The Hezbollah in the tunnels would, all they got to do is start firing these canisters with the gas near where the generators are, or the fans that suck the air in. So the Hezbollah would basically be poisoning themselves. And if they didn't get away from the fumes of this or the gas, the symptoms would probably keep reoccurring. They would keep getting dry heaves and everything else, contractions in the abdomen. They'd be miserable. So miserable they would probably think that they're dying and that it's lethal. But they would definitely want to get out of the tunnel into fresh air. Recovery time from this is likely a few hours. Probably in 30 minutes of fresh air or 15 minutes of fresh air and some nice cool water, and you hose yourself off or something like that, you probably feel much, much better. Okay? It's not something designed to be very long lasting. They're not going to want to be in the tunnel after they've all been vomiting and pooping. The chances of them dying is minimal. Maybe a couple will have heart attacks, spasms, or it's always a chance, but massive death is not at all going to occur from the use of these weapons. Okay? They're designed to make people leave an area. What area would we want them to leave? The tunnels. How could we deliver it in a tunnel 100 feet down? Just put it near the intake. They got to have fans sucking air in. That's it. And they're going to suck the gas in. They could shut the fan off if they figure out what happened. Then they got no air. And the gas is already in there. This would create panic and confusion. They would think the gas is killing them and they would want to get out of the tunnels. When they get out of the tunnels, what happens? In Arabic, put your hands up, drop your weapons, or we'll kill you immediately. That's it. Now we got a lot of intel. We take them prisoner and we get all kinds of intel. Later on, we may just shoot them when they come out. I don't know. They're going to be so discombobulated they might not even come out with their weapons. They'll rip their shirts. They'll be trying to do everything. Put their clothing over their mouths. And I don't know what they're doing. Imagine they're in a congested tunnel with loads of them trying to avoid the air attacks. And this happens. So what I'm telling you is you could turn the tunnels against them. In Gaza, it was precarious. Of course, the civilians, there were hostages in the tunnels. It was screwball. Lebanon is a much more antiseptic battlefield, more sterile. Now, I'm not saying Israel's going to use this, but the smartest thing for Israel to do would be to use some sort of a chemical weapon on them in the tunnels. They can't cut off their air supply. They have no solution to this. They could bring scuba tanks with them and put it in their mouth and breathe out of the tank, but the chemical agents are still going to get in their ears and their eyes and their skin, And how much air are you going to have in the tank anyway? An hour and a half? It's silly. It doesn't work. If they had air tanks down there the size of 40-foot trailers, maybe they'd be able to survive for a day or two, but they don't have that. Submarines in World War II had air tanks, and the best they were really ever able to get in World War II was 24 hours. That was the best. I mean, if they were sophisticated, they could snorkel. In other words, have like a periscope tube come to the surface, suck air down, and then compress it and keep it and then release it. But, I mean, they don't have that. They're just sucking air in with fans. Which one of the reasons is we're going to knock out the electrical grid. Because that means they got to turn the generators on. And you only have so much fuel for the generators. You might have 2 weeks, but the war might take 2 weeks. You might have a month, but could take a month. So eventually they run out. If they're using civilian electricity and we keep it on, well, then they can go indefinitely. So while the tunnels have its advantages, they're also a tomb of death. It just depends how you look at it. You could look at it as the best thing that ever happened to Israel. The combined air attacks from Israeli surface-to-surface missiles, extensive artillery barrages, bombs, missiles air-to-surface, and American Navy ship missiles and American jets bombing them are going to blow a lot of any facility they have above ground is going to get destroyed. And they're going to be driven to go down in the tunnels and laugh at us and say, oh, they can't keep bombing forever. We'll come back. And then you've got to find a way to attack them in the tunnels. And digging down deep in tunnels, and let's say they don't go that deep. Let's go to 60, 80, 90 feet. And they put 10 or 12 inches of concrete up there with extensive steel support girders. You're going to have a very hard time destroying the tunnel, and when you destroy them, it's probably just going to be portions. But what are the weaknesses of the tunnel? They need electricity and they need air. There you have it. And we're dealing with people that say they're going to come in and destroy the Galilee and kill all of us. What do you think we're going to do? Die because the UN says we can't use these weapons? What would you do? Is this likely to bring on the siege in Zechariah 12? You bet. It'll push it forward anyway. Can this be done other ways? Yeah, they might be able to get enough big bunker busters and knock the tunnels up the conventional way. I think Israel and America would both prefer to do it that way. I have no doubt. Why wouldn't they? And it could work. America's got a lot of these bombs, and it could really work. It could. It is highly possible that it'll work, but if it isn't, I'm sure we're going to go to chemical. And if you think Israel hadn't thought of this 40, 50 years ago, you're mistaken. They've got these weapons. Do they not have a lot of surface-to-surface missiles? Oh gosh, they've got tons of them. But, you know, if you were dealing with an enemy that didn't go into tunnels and underground bunkers, you would be able to do it that way, but they do it. Look, the mindset of these satellites of Iran are idiots. They're cannon fodder for Iran. Now, what the Lord showed me rather graphically this morning is I want to explain in more depth and detail to you what is really going on with the Middle East, with Iran, Russia, and China. I didn't see it as clear as he showed it to me today. A vast amount of the world's oil is coming out of Iran, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, to some reasonable extent, Jordan. Syria has it, but their capability is rather destroyed. Yemen has it. Egypt has it. Okay. Forget about Egypt for now, but you really can't forget about it, but let's put it on the side. Okay? America and China want to get rid of America. China and Russia want to get rid of America. They keep putting sanctions on them. They keep controlling them. They keep pushing them around, bullying them. They're tired of it. They're in BRICS, and BRICS is working overtime to do trading amongst themselves in oil, and the BRIC countries with other countries and not accept the US dollar. And Saudi Arabia just went off the US dollar and the euro for selling oil. Now, America will go to war over this type of thing. If the American dollar is diminished in value by, 40, 50%, they're in trouble. They need to be able to just print money and everybody takes it and they can keep building their war machine and incurring the debt. They don't care apparently how big the debt gets. Bleeding the American taxpayers to pay for debt that they could never pay off. And the debt goes to the Federal Reserve System, which is owned by private individuals who we don't know who they are, and they don't have to pay tax on their profits. It's an absurd system. Welcome to the daughter of Babylon. So, the people that own the Federal Reserve Bank must have multi-trillions of dollars by now. I mean, maybe 30 or 50 trillion dollars, and they're so wealthy. All right. They don't have generational wealth. They got enough wealth to run nations on their own. Okay. So, America, the European Union, North America, Central America, South America, even countries in Asia like Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, they need oil. They don't have it. They need oil and gas. Oil is petroleum, gas is natural gas. But we'll focus on the oil, which makes gasoline for cars and trucks and boats and trains and all this stuff, right? So, to destroy America, Russia and China, of course with North Korea and Iran, have mutual defense treaties, trade treaties, and all kinds of, blowing kisses at each other. All right? So what Iran is trying to do is get rid of two factors in the Middle East. Well, 2.5. They want to get rid of Israel, they want to get rid of America, and the half is the small influence that the UK has, which is not that much. France is even, maybe that's, a tenth or something. They're not worried that much about France. So they take the proxies and they attack Israel, okay, with a choreographed system. First Hamas, then Hezbollah, Iraq, Syria militias, and then to a small extent, and then the Houthis. And now Iran is threatening to get into the fracas. So what Iran and Russia and China and North Korea are doing is working two paths that go in the same direction, sort of, okay? They're attacking the American bases in Iraq and Syria with the embassies and consulates, and they're telling America, Iraq is telling America, leave already, leave. You don't leave. We keep telling you to leave, and you don't leave. They don't have any permission from the Syrian government to be in Syria, that they're in Syria. So a few days ago, they attacked an American base again, sending a signal to America about what's to come on them. So as the Lebanon war advances, the Iraqi militias have said yesterday or today that they're going to attack the American interests in the Middle East, and they're going to start with these bases in Iraq and Syria, and the embassy and consulate in Iraq. Now, the Biden administration knows this. The bases don't have like 24,000 soldiers or anything like that. They don't have air bases, They could come in and out with helicopters, I'm sure, but they don't have air bases. They don't have much, okay? So what they want is they want America out, okay? And they want Israel out. Israel keeps messing with their satellites, Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, Iraq, I don't want them there either. Now, the Biden administration is very well aware of this. So if American bases are driven out of Iraq and Syria, and Israel's destroyed, which is their goal, genocide, that means Iran then 1 month goes to Kuwait nicely. They sit down, they talk, they break bread, and it says, listen, you have to submit to us, or I'm afraid we'll have to conquer you. Without an American presence, they're going to go and say, there's no reason for that, brother. Let's work it out. What do you need? And they'll be told to sever all their ties with NATO and America and Israel. And we're going to tell you what to price your oil at and how much to sell. Bahrain just went over to Iran to restore relations. They'll do it with Bahrain. They'll do it with Qatar. The UAE is playing footsies with Iran for some months now. They'll go over. Oman will go whichever way the wind blows. And Saudi Arabia is already going over. And Jordan is resistant. So the Jordan police just found a lot of explosives in Jordan that were from Iran. And the thought behind it is they were trying to get a revolution going in Jordan. I told you that the king of Jordan is very weak there. And this is likely going to happen. Yemen's already on their side. Egypt is in Africa, and it's a big fish to fry. And, I don't know. Egypt and Iran don't get along. So they drive America out, they destroy Israel, and then they pull all these countries into their realm of control. And Russia and China help them and back them, and so does North Korea. And then when they get this level of control, it's very simple. If you're not a friend of our countries, and you're not a pro-Muslim state, oil for you is, $125 or $200 a barrel. And they don't have to do it that way. All they have to do is 1 month cut production down by 10%. 2 months later, another 10%. 2 months later, another 10%. You're not raising prices, you're just reducing the amount of oil you're going to sell. And they all do it at the same time. So every time they take it down like 10%, oil's probably going to go up $25, $30, $40. So when they get the oil prices up to a level they want it, which would probably be at least $150 or $200, they have broken the economy of European Union and North America and many other countries. People can't go to work. How many people in America would not go to work if they were paying $15 a gallon? Many. There's a lot of people that are burning 2 gallons a day to go to work, and that's living close. That would be $30 a day, $150, that'd be $600 a week, a month on gas. Now, there's a lot of people that burn 5 or 6 gallons a day commuting. Okay? It might cost them, $2,000 or $3,000 a month in gas. They can't do it. And initially, in the early stages, they'll carpool. The SUVs, the pickup trucks, the large cars, they'll become worthless. Nobody will want them. They'll have no resale value. If you've got like a Cadillac Escalade with 4-wheel drive that, in the city gets 8 or 9 miles a gallon, and the guy paid $110,000 for it, and it's 6 months old, he'd be lucky to get $15,000 for it. So they'll start walking away from these cars because they can't drive them. They'll just give them back to the company who has nothing to. What are they going to do with them? Home heating oil costs will go up to the point where in the winter people will walk around in the house with the thermostat set to 55 degrees just to keep the chill out, or maybe 60. But when you're talking about 5 above 0 or 10 above 0, setting it to 60 isn't going to do any good. It's going to stay on all the time. You'd have to set it to 50. So people will start shutting their heat off at night and using sleeping bags. The chances are that you're going to have to leave the heat off in your house for a long period of time, like 20, 30 hours, for it to start creating freezing in the house, where you got ice on the floor or something like that. But, this could happen. People won't heat the house. And they'll heat it during the day hours mildly, like set it at 55 and walk around with jackets. 55's not that bad. You're not going to go numb. You break the country. So China and Russia basically figured out they could destroy America without a big war. Just by the gasoline. And for that, they needed Iran. So they did mutual defense treaties with Iran, which I'm not so sure they're serious about backing up. Now, is the Biden administration rather aware of this? Yes. Because the guys at the Pentagon figured it out. Blinken and Sullivan and Austin. Maybe Austin knows something better. But the majors and the colonels in the Pentagon that are not the Satan bots, this is what the Satan bots that are the bureaucrats feed on. They probably figured this out, and it's a valid theory. So they're all aware. Okay? So that's why October 7th happened with Biden and Netanyahu visiting Biden on the 24th of September. Then October 7th happens with all our defenses and guard down. Then Israel gets riled up and says, we're going to go in and get Gaza around. We're still doing it. And then the other satellite states joined in, which is pretty predictable. And, Biden runs around, leave them alone in Gaza, this and that. And Netanyahu says, no, I won't, I'm going, and it keeps going that way. Is there really a shortage and a reduction of arms in Israel, or are they just telling us that? I don't know. I think Biden's somewhat really mad at Netanyahu, so it could be real. Now Gallant goes over there. Gallant's out of the government. He resigned from the war cabinet. He's a nobody. Why are they meeting with Gallant? Well, I think they're trying to prop Gallant up against Netanyahu for a vote of no confidence. I think Biden is so mad at Netanyahu he doesn't want him coming to the White House because Netanyahu will come back and tell the voters in Israel, we had a great time, we shared a lot of great ideas, we're moving together, we see eye to eye, and everybody just say, we got America behind us. He doesn't want that. Now, at the same time as this is going on, Biden is using us as bait to draw Iran in. They understood this, okay? That's why they came over here in the beginning with their aircraft carriers and did nothing. They did a show of force and they did precious little. That's why they're not invading the Houthis. That's why they haven't wiped out the Iran-backed militias in Saudi Arabia, in Syria and Jordan, and Iraq, rather. They want Iran sucked in deeper, so they're making Iran think they're afraid to do anything. Okay? So Iran is just about all the way sucked in. Biden can't just get up in the morning and say, folks, it's the best thing for you. Believe me, I've got to kill Iran. There'd be chaos in America. So he has to get Iran overconfident. And he has to get Iran to do stupid things. And then he'll finish off Iran. That's the prophecies in Jeremiah 49. Okay? Her enemies, Iran's enemies. It's not just Iran, it's Elam, which is part of Iran, part of Iraq, part of Syria. They're all going to get it. Okay? But Biden is trying to suck them in. And he's doing a good job at Israel's expense. At the same time, Israel gets a lot of damage. People leave Israel, probably won't come back, which Satan loves. And things are so bad here, there's not going to be any aliyahs or more Jews coming here, as it looks to the Americans. So Satan thinks it's cool. And at the same time, Biden wants to make sure that Israel doesn't stay in control of Gaza or move Jews into Gaza and just reclaim land and making it open knowledge that they're fulfilling Bible prophecy. The same with Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria, and so forth. So he fights with Netanyahu bitterly over that because Netanyahu wants these things because he'll win his popularity with the people and won't have a vote of no confidence. Netanyahu is probably 5 times better politician than Benny Gantz. Benny Gantz is stupid and horrible at this. He was a lifelong military leader, and this character doesn't know his way around in politics. Him stepping down off the war cabinet only weakened his position, accomplished nothing. He doesn't understand things. He's not the brightest light, in the harbor. He more than likely was put in the position of the Minister of Defense and the other jobs he had as the top general because he's a bureaucrat moron Satan bot that the demons like. And that's why he was put there. And then because his dumbbell doesn't have his own ideas, they don't have to worry about him taking things on his own or arguing points with them. They just, what do I do? What do I do now? And they say, okay, do this, that, and the other. He's, okay, I'll do it. And he goes ahead and does it. He's not capable of coming to conclusions and decisions on his own. He's that bad. He doesn't know what he's doing. And they're all that way. They're all that way. Bennett. He told us, I'm not like the other, I'm right wing or right wing and this and that. What happened when he got in briefly? It was a similar piece of garbage to Netanyahu, very little difference. They're all cut out of the same satanic cloth. They're all going to be the same. So, Biden is trying to rub some, make gallant shine by saying, look, he's my friend. He comes over and talks to me. I like him, And boosts his popularity, but I don't think it's going to work. Gallant is a nothing. The people thought Bennett would be good, and nothing. They don't have anybody. There's no contender for the prime minister's office that's ever going to help Israel, really. They're all S-bots. So, that's the plan. And this plan, this snare that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are working out, isn't working out. Biden, it looks like he's going to bust their plan up real good. The Ukraine war did not go well for Russia. He did manage to get a lot of NATO countries and America to dump a lot of weapons into Ukraine, which until very recently didn't hurt Russia any. And it ran their weapons supplies down drastically. And did no good. Now Russia looks like they're getting serious, and they got 100,000 soldiers in Russia, and 7 in Ukraine, and 700,000 right in Russia near it. Anytime he wants, he could push forward and take Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. NATO might send soldiers and weapons into Ukraine to stop them. I think they would. That would be a big war. I don't think NATO would do nothing. Putin knows that. At the same time, NATO is trying to weaken Russia by having them use up their weapons inside Ukraine so they can't use them on Europe. So they're all playing all these games with each other, okay? But the wild card here is the sleeper agents in America. And as soon as this coalition against America, China, North Korea, Iran, and Russia decide they want the sleeper agents launched, America's going to be in real trouble. And this jerk Biden brought it on himself by opening up the doors of the border and letting the illegals vote, which he's already done, I understand, assuming they'll vote for him, and he could survive the election. If you had a straight up, fair, honest election with Biden against Trump, Biden would agree to take the drug tests and the cognitive tests, which he'll never do. And he'd lose. And then Trump will go after him, Obama, and the whole administration for what they tried to do to him. And they can wind up in jail. So everybody's hanging on and fighting for their life here. Biden is going to hit Iran. That breaks this whole mess up. Russia's not really active very much at all in the Middle East, and China minimal. North Korea, nothing. Advisors, weapon shipments. So Biden wants to keep Hamas intact in Gaza so Israel doesn't get a victory and doesn't go move back into Gaza, which we will do. Same with Lebanon. But I don't think now he's very interested in Hezbollah. Hezbollah doesn't even sit down and talk with America. Through third parties or anything, they don't do anything. He wants Iran to feel bold, make moves that get public opinion turned against them, and then he can attack Iran without Congress freaking out. And we've already seen some choreographed moves here. One of the Republicans, I don't remember which crook it was, says that they're going to hold Iran responsible if the Lebanon war goes full out. You see, this is the beginning of it, you know. Iran thinks America will do nothing and acts accordingly, and that'll be the case until America decides to become the sleeping lion that got woke up. And it'll jump on Iran with its claws and fangs, and it's it for Iran. America doesn't have to move soldiers over here. They don't have to bring tanks, they don't have to bring soldiers, they don't have to bring that. All they need is aircraft and naval ships. That's it. They could knock out Iran, Lebanon, the Houthis. That's all they got to do. Then Saudi Arabia will immediately go back to taking the US dollar. BRICS will suffer significant damage. That'll probably stop with not taking the US dollar. And America goes on her merry way, but the sleeper agents are a wild card, and that's not going to let it happen. But they're trying to draw a lot of American troops out around the world, and they've done it. So when they light up the sleeper agents, America may go ballistic on them with the troops overseas, so they have to contain that and attack them too. But Jeremiah 50 verse 24 tells us that America's in a snare that God placed on them, and you don't get out of that snare. At this point, I do believe Biden wants to infuriate Iran, and the way he'll infuriate Iran is to knock out Lebanon with Israel, and if that doesn't work, he'll knock out the Houthis, or he'll do something else, or just find a way to go after them directly. People in Congress are stirring the pot and saying, if there's a full-scale war in Lebanon, we're going to blame Iran. So then the congressmen started, introducing a cry to declare war on Iran, and then all of a sudden Biden and the Democrats support the Republicans, and they go after Iran. Iran is destabilizing the Middle East. They're wrecking oil prices. They're going to ruin our economy. They're this, they're that. They're in bed with Russia. Blah blah blah. They're sending weapons to Ukraine to help Putin, and on and on. They're supporting people to kill Israel, our great ally. They're supporting the Houthis and giving them weapons to interdict ships, and all this stuff. Now, if the American warships come here, which they will, they're on the way. I don't think they're going to get that close to Lebanon because of these good anti-ship missiles they're getting from Iran. So, I would think 200 miles would do it. They may be a little nervous and go out 300. That's just a few minutes for a jet. And the cruise missiles can go 500 miles, so they don't have a problem with that. I think 200, maybe even less. Now, the radar in Lebanon, whatever, if there is any, I don't even know if there is any anymore, will be taken out by Israel pronto tanto. Now, when that happens, it'll be much easier for the American warships to get closer, like 100 miles, which is a really good, comfortable distance for them normally. 100 miles will keep them out of range of all the problems, most likely. The radar, you see, Iran will probably try to send a warship near Lebanon, like it did with the Houthis in Yemen. It's Iranian warships that are finding the targets, and the Houthis are launching the missiles. And if they get a lucky shot, they're told what the coordinates are, they'll hit. And if they have ballistic missiles, which apparently they have some of those, they're guided, the Iranian warship guides the missiles and guides the drones onto the target. It's not hard to understand. So to make this work for the Hezbollah in Lebanon, they need an Iranian warship near Lebanon that could help guide the missiles, locate targets, and so forth. Now, if America has a capital ships there and sees an Iranian warship there, there's a number of actions America could take. One is fire they could call the Iranian warship on the phone, which won't do any good on the radio. The next thing they could do is fire a couple of missiles in front of the Iranian warship, and then say the next ones are not going to miss. This was a warning. Okay? And if they still don't leave, sink the ship. I don't think they'll do that. What I think they'd be more prone to do is pull Iran into the plot. Leave the warship there, and then a warship gets hit with missiles and damaged, and a few sailors get killed, or they have close calls or something like that. And they say, we analyzed the data, and it was Iran that directed the missile into the American destroyer, killing 6 and wounding 19, or whatever the numbers would be, right? And that means Iran declared war on us, and we're going to declare war on Iran. And then the Democrats and the Republicans all of a sudden get along. Yeah, we're going to go kill Iran. And then everybody starts playing the song Bob, 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 Iran. But they're going to sing it as bomb, 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 Iran. Just like they did in 1979 when Iran overthrew the Shah. That's when the song was written, I think in 1980. It was written and sung, but it'll have a revival like you won't believe. So America would basically do a limited Pearl Harbor by allowing one or more of their ships to get hit, and then reveal to the world that it's Iran that did it, and how they did it, and how horrible it is, and we got to stop these lunatics before they wreck the whole world. They're never going to go tell the story about oil and all that. They'll never tell the Americans that. Let me check the chat and see what I got to do here. See if we got any bad ones in there or something like that. I interact with the chat. If somebody poses a question, I interact. No fun? Go. It's your choice. The Old Testament will truly disappear when Yeshua is on earth in New Jerusalem. And in Revelation 21, it says there's no temple there. And he's the high priest in the order of Melchizedek, so he never has to do any more sacrifices. But it also says if he were on earth, he would be no high priest. But when he's in New Jerusalem, he will. And that's when it's done away with. Matthew 5:17, which the church ignores, says that Yeshua talking says, don't think I came to destroy the law and the prophets, but to fulfill. For as long as there's a heaven and an earth, not one jot or tittle shall be done away with from the law. Well, the law will still be around when New Jerusalem's here, but the sacrifice part of the law won't be. So this person is just spouting forth the churchianity party line, which is untrue, and it caters to people that don't know how to study the Bible. If you ask me questions about the Talmud, I'll try to answer. Do I know it? I've read it. It's unbelievably silly to understand. You can't understand it, so I'm not an expert on it at all. Oh, somebody broke my heart. They called me Billy Bob. Oh. When I wore Western hats, they called me Cowboy. Now they call me Duck Dynasty or Billy Bob. Mockers. Oh, this guy broke my heart. Oh, the life and the spirit is out of me. He put Palestinian flags up in the chat. Oh, I can't take it. I can't take it. Doesn't bother me at all. I just block him. I don't care. It's supposed to scare me and make me know that there's people that hate us. You know, stuff like that. It's ridiculous. We got another one. They should go live under Sharia law. But where they're headed, it's going to be pretty hot. All right, I cleaned the garbage out. Let's see what else is going on now. If we've got any recent developments. Things break pretty fast now. Federal judges stopped Biden's student loan repayment plan. I guess to get votes, he was doing something in favor of those with student loans, and they stopped it. The Israeli Supreme Court ruled that the military must draft the ultra-Orthodox. They can't stall it anymore. That could cause the ultra-Orthodox to want to side with another coalition other than Netanyahu because he wasn't able to block this. Also, they threatened that all 1.2 million of them would leave Israel. I'm reasonably thinking they would go to Egypt and probably die there. Fulfilling the scripture, you'll go back to Egypt, or I told you wouldn't go back there, something like that. The scripture reads like that. Not the exact words, but like that. Exports from Arab countries, Arab Muslim countries to Israel are up right now, which is odd. Arms sales from India to Israel since October 7th have been very high. So they might leave Israel, but I don't think they got enough time. It's going to take them time to leave. I mean, where they're going to go, they need to make arrangements, they need to pack, they need to ship stuff out, they need this. It doesn't sound like there's enough time for that. Qais Ghazali, who heads the Iraqi Asaib al-Haq League of the Righteous, it's a militia, threatens the U.S. if the U.S. continues to assist the Zionist entity during an extensive attack on Lebanon and Hezbollah. It must know that all of its interests in the region, with an emphasis on Iraq, shall be targets for attack. Very interesting. What else is going on? We are, for several days now, been reasonably quiet, not completely, with rockets from Hezbollah. Yesterday and today there was some, but there wasn't much at all. I would say it's down 80%, maybe 85%. It's way down. It's a break. It's a nice break. See, Iran had their proxy states near Israel: Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, and they used those to put pressure on Israel to avoid Israel attacking them. So they would use them to hurt Israel, and then Israel wouldn't hurt Iran. And it's getting old, you know. The what's the jerk's name? Ishmael Haniyeh, the chairman of the political bureau for Hamas. His sister was killed in an air attack in Gaza. Let's see. Russia said they are holding America guilty for that Ukrainian launch of let's see what else we got going on. I'm going through the news to see what I can come up with since I started the broadcast, because stuff's breaking so fast now. So fast. Every couple of hours something happens. So I told you the ultra-Orthodox don't want to go in the draft because they're going to go to the Galilee, and the Talmud rabbi preachers are telling them the Galilee is going to be destroyed. And that's one good reason why they may leave Israel. So with Netanyahu not wanting to hurt the ultra-Orthodox who was in his coalition, they were supposed to go in the draft, but they weren't being inducted. Now the Supreme Court's telling them, you got to do it, or they'll be up on charges. But I don't know, Gallant is against the ultra-Orthodox not going in the military. He wants them in the military. So they don't have a safe haven, so they may just decide to stick with Netanyahu and hope he pulls something off down the road or something, I don't know. See, things keep going wrong to these spot politicians, and they don't know what to do. They just keep walking into walls. I'm not seeing much else happening. Let's see if we got questions. I do like to answer questions if I get anything that's, if they're going to ask me questions about Duck Dynasty, I'm not answering them. But yeah, somebody put up the relevant scripture. I didn't remember it. I'll read it. Jeremiah 42:17. I'm going to get there now. Jeremiah 42:17. So shall it be with all the men that set their faces to go into Egypt to sojourn there. They shall die by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence, and none of them shall remain or escape from the evil that I bring upon them. For thus saith Jehovah of armies, Elohim Yisrael, as my anger and my fury have been poured forth upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem. This is for the referencing the past. So shall my fury be poured forth upon you when you shall enter into Egypt, and you shall be an execration and an astonishment and a curse and a reproach, and you shall see this place no more. Jehovah hath said concerning you, O you remnant of Judah, go you not into Egypt, know certainly that I have admonished you this day. For you dissembled in your hearts when you sent me unto Jehovah Elohim, saying, pray for us unto Jehovah Elohim, and according to all that Jehovah Elohim shall say, so declare unto us, and we will do it. And now I have this day declared it to you, but you have not obeyed the voice of Jehovah Elohim, nor any things for which he hath sent me unto you. It's Jeremiah. Now therefore know certainly that you shall die by the sword, by the famine, by the pestilence, in the place whither you desire to go and to sojourn. See, the Haredi, the ultra-Orthodox, don't think Israel is Israel. It's really sort of a fake Israel, but they don't have any better alternatives. They're horrible. So they might do that. Where else are they going to go? America won't take. Nobody's going to take them. Egypt might take them. For PR reasons, or I don't know what. I'll be right back. Let's see if they leave. It may happen. Let's see. They can get to Egypt by land, cheap and easy. And housing is cheap and easy in Egypt. They could also make a show to Israel. They'd rather go back to Egypt than be in Israel. You see, the ultra-Orthodox is a cult. They say they're Jews and they follow an unbiblical book, the Talmud. They dress funny. You ever notice how many of these crazy religions dress in black and white? The Muslims do. The Amish do. I don't know. A lot of them do. So, the leaders are S-bots. And they tell them, oh, we're going to go to Egypt. We'll be safe. Don't worry. We're your rabbis. We got it knocked. And that's an insult to Jehovah. They're going to lead the Jews into Egypt again. Leave Israel to go into Egypt because they don't like Jehovah. They don't like Israel, whatever it is. And they'll die there. Where's that leave the Jews that are running away to other countries from Israel and staying away during the war? My guess they'll come back in the Exodus. It'll be a pain for them, but they're not going to get cut off. But going to Egypt, I don't know any Jews that are going to Egypt. I don't think there are any, except these ultra-Orthodox. See, they can go there by bus. They could go to Jordan by bus. Jordan's not letting them in. They could go to Syria. Syria's not letting them in. Lebanon's not letting them in. Gaza, they wouldn't go to. You know, it boils down to Egypt. I don't know the motive that Egypt would have to let them in other than to kill them. Use them as hostages or something. I don't know. Let's see if it happens. It may not happen. If it's going to happen, it has to happen fast. Netanyahu's going to try to drag this out with actually inducting the ultra-Orthodox into the military, and he has dragged it out already. How much further can he drag it out and the Supreme Court sits still for it? I have no idea. I don't think much further. I don't think so, but I don't know so either. Could happen. I don't know who else it would apply to. The Jews in Egypt left a long time ago. During World War II, there were a lot of Jews in Egypt, and before World War II, they lived pretty good in Egypt. They didn't have the trouble with the Muslims too much. They had it, but not that much. And they lived there. They thrived there. They went to university. They spoke Arabic and Hebrew and Yiddish, I guess. And they left. They came to Israel, you know. Don't know that, but it's interesting. Let's see if it happens. I can't guarantee that it will happen. I read it, and this occurred to my mind, and I thought it might happen. Okay, when is the war with Lebanon going to light up? Any day. Any day. Israel would probably like to wait till the aircraft carriers get here and till they do a better job down in Rafah and finish up. Okay. Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, may not want to wait for the aircraft carriers to get here. He may want to start sooner so he could get some good attacks in easier. We've been moving for a week at least. Tanks, armor, mobile artillery, towed artillery, and weapons and soldiers up to the north. So we're loaded for bear up there. It's true that they could overwhelm our Iron Dome using the junky Katyusha rockets, which are short range, and drones all at the same time in large amounts. They can overwhelm it. I've been telling you for years that these anti-missile systems are bogus because they can be overcome with a swarm attack. Okay? Iran had a very rude awakening several weeks ago when they launched all those missiles and drones at us and caused next to no damage. And then we retaliated against them by attacking 2 military bases seriously and taking out the radar of 5 of their nuclear facilities, leaving them undefended. They were in shock when that happened. Shock. And that was not a case of us using weapons we never used before. No. They might have some other weapon that I don't know about. They might have a sound weapon that'll fracture the tunnels. Maybe such a thing exists. Do I think it does? Nah, but it could. I don't know. We know Lebanon to some extent is going to survive, and I don't think Israel's going to get seriously, wiped out all over the place or anything like that. It's so difficult to get any good, good sourced information as to where these aircraft carriers are now. It's very difficult. The only thing I think we're going to have to wait for is for an announcement from America as to where they are, or they just pop up and they're seen by people on ships and aircraft and stuff like that. But airplanes travel in the same corridors, commercial aircraft, airliners with people, and cargo. So it's easy for America to avoid those those air traffic lanes, so you wouldn't see them. I'm sure Israel knows where they are, but they're not talking. Of course, they maintain secrecy with America. So you have to give America credit. They've convinced Iran that they're going to do nothing, and Iran is running around full of their pride, and they're going to get slammed. It's very easy for America to finish off Lebanon and then take the planes from the aircraft carriers and just start attacking Iran. They don't need more planes to attack Iran. Israel will join in. Biden would have to threaten to execute Netanyahu to stop Netanyahu from joining in. Netanyahu hates Iran. So they'll have plenty of planes from Israel. They might even use Israel airfields after Lebanon's taken out. No, there's also going to be a substantial amount of fighting in Iraq and Syria. You can count on that. Before they can before they can comfortably attack Israel from Iraq and Syria, they got to knock out the American bases. And there's also British bases that got to go. And that by itself can give America the excuse to go to Congress and get a declaration of war. Combine that with Lebanon, and then they can. I think Biden's going to go for a declaration of war, or else get Iran into a position where they, by their action, have declared war against America. Like attacking a ship or attacking a military base, which they've done 100 times in Iraq and Syria. So we're on an any-day basis. So I've asked several people that would normally be sending offerings in at a certain time that it would probably be wise to do it early because there might not be any, viable way to get the money out of these payment processors into Israel once the trouble begins. The internet cables, the Houthis will most likely cut or explode those cables when the fighting starts. When America joins in with Lebanon, I think the cables will be gone. Or when Israel invades Lebanon, the cables will be gone. But I'm pretty sure they're going to take the cables out. Unless Russia and China don't want that right now or something, I don't know. But there's a high probability they'll do it. And we could have problems. When October 7th went on for a while, they weren't bringing aircraft with cargo and stuff into Israel. And we weren't able to get shipments. And I don't know how bad it's going to be, but it took that precaution. We're getting very, very close to the day of vengeance, end of year of recompenses, and beginning year of redemption. Very, very close. So something's going to blow, Something's going to blow up. Something's going to blow. Is it possible that this thing with Lebanon and Israel just drags on for another week or two or something? Remotely possible. And that would be Lebanon's afraid to start it with us, and Israel's dragging its feet because they want to finish Rafah so they could focus more on Lebanon. Because any contingency of Hamas left in Gaza that can function, and they just in the last 2 days launched some rockets at us again, not many. So they must have some rockets hidden around there someplace. So they want to make sure that doesn't go on. And then they got to leave a bunch of soldiers down there to make sure they don't try to push out of the borders or something like that. So I think they'd probably leave 7, 8, 10,000. And they'll have several, they'll have tanks, Humvees, armored personnel carriers, mobile artillery, stuff like that, the ability to call in airstrikes. That'll probably be what they need. I don't know how many tanks, probably 50 to 100. The Iraqis said they're going to take in Hamas. Now, this is such poorly translated from Arabic. They're going to take in Hamas. So what are we going to believe? 30,000 Hamas are going to go to Iraq? I think Netanyahu and Biden would let that happen. Or does it mean there's going to be like 100 leaders of Hamas that are going to go to Iraq? Probably that. How are you going to move 30,000 to Iraq? But 100, you just send a plane to Egypt, let them go into Egypt, get on a plane and fly them to Iraq. They go to the Baghdad International Airport, they get off, they go to a hotel. Netanyahu would probably like to get his hands on them and have them spill the beans about Iran. And Biden might like that also, so maybe this is not going to happen. Biden would just tell Egypt, if you try transferring them over there, we're going to bomb the convoy. Or Israel could tell them that, or whatever. They both could tell them that. So that, without Biden's permission, I don't think that's going to happen. Iraq said they're not going to go back on their word for that. And Iraq is under Iran. Don't kid yourself. They're a legitimate independent government, but they report to Iran. They're under Iran. They're not a satellite. They're an actual government. So they're doing it because Iran wants them to do this. Now, I don't know, maybe it's 500 or 600 of them or something like that, but I don't think it's going to be more than 2 or 3 plane loads, probably not even that high. The rest of them will just be left there. They don't know anything, they can't reveal anything, you know. Probably just the higher ranking officers and the top dogs are going to, and their families, go to Iraq. They're just changing frying pans. They're jumping out of one frying pan going into another. There's a chance that if it's just a couple of hundred, they're not going to use them to fight the Americans in their bases in Iraq and Syria, nor send them to Lebanon. But if they did get 30,000 out there, they would march on the American bases in Iraq and Syria and then go to Lebanon. I don't think that's going to happen. Logistically, it can't easily happen. How are they going to get them out? Egypt would have to agree to let tens of thousands of them travel into Egypt, hoping they leave. And a lot of them may not leave. They'd just run away to the Muslim Brotherhood, their friends, and stay in Egypt to help the Muslim Brotherhood overthrow the government of Egypt. And Sisi knows that. 100, 200 he didn't care about, you know. So that's another interesting development. I guess that's about it. We just have to watch and wait and see what develops. But the big war with Lebanon could break out any day. Israel could do a preemptive strike when Lebanon's not ready, and Lebanon could try that with Israel, but I assure you Israel is ready. The end of this exercise is going to be Israel does not rely on its military anymore but God. And the Satan bots are no more. That's where we're headed between now and the beginning of August, so it doesn't leave a lot of time. But it is a fascinating time to live and watch what's going on. The people here in Israel are worn down. Many of them have sons, daughters, cousins, relatives, friends in the military. They've been in Gaza for months. There's been a lot of wounded in Gaza. Not that many killed, but there's been a bunch wounded. Dealing with the hostages is depressing. Movements to call for early elections and get rid of Netanyahu is straining. We got unusual shortages in stores that usually don't last very long. Like they run out of tomato juice and they have it again, or they run out of this and then they have it again. You know, but before the war we didn't used to run into that. So the shipping is curtailed. If the war starts, they might shoot it to Tel Aviv airport and hurt shipping even more. They keep talking about hitting the Haifa port, and nobody in Israel says the Haifa port was hit. So maybe they didn't hit the American warships, or they didn't hit them that badly. Maybe Americans are telling the truth. I mean, Haifa has hundreds of thousands of people, and they could see the port. If the port got hit, everybody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. And then we keep reading, they said they did 2 attacks on the port, 1 attack, there must be 5 or 6 attacks on the port that nobody in Israel knows about, and they could see it if it happened. So they could be lying about the attacks. So I think if the Eisenhower really had a 25, 30-foot hole in its deck, I'm having trouble believing they kept it in theater in a defensive mode after that kind of damage, because there had to be damage to the electric, to the hydraulic, to the plumbing, to all kinds of stuff. The structure. Now, on the other hand, they could have just welded, big steel plates into the deck and restored it, and I think they pave it with some sort of tar or something, and they put it back into combat because most of the damage would have been at the deck where the missile exploded, and there probably wouldn't have been a lot of explosive because of force inside the ship. And they made superficial repairs to the deck, or good enough to have planes take off and land, and they were going to keep the Eisenhower here until Theodore Roosevelt or Gerald Ford showed up, and then send it home. But now they're saying it's going to remain in theater, so I'm a little confused about that. It could be they were just outright lying. And then they said they hit it again, and there was no visual proof of it. And the Eisenhower did not pull into port anywhere, it just went right to the Mediterranean. And it doesn't look like it. They could be lying, so maybe not a whole lot happened to the ship, or it never was hit. I don't know. But we don't hear what happened to that destroyer that was with the Eisenhower that they said they hit, and they showed pictures of the ship burning, which I think was the ship. Maybe that happened. I don't know what happened. You know, America will lie too. They don't talk, so we don't know. We don't know what happened, but the Eisenhower is functional, and if they repair the deck, it's probably got, 75 to 90 aircraft, and it could launch a lot of death and destruction on Hezbollah, that's for sure. So let's see what kind of tricks Israel has up her sleeves if and when this goes down. Maybe it won't go down. It says, Lebanon, open up your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn. Lebanon's had hundreds and hundreds of fires already from our bombs and artillery, because the temperatures are hot and dry. So maybe it already happened, I don't know. Or maybe more of it, I don't know. I don't see anything where Lebanon comes in and conquers Israel or portions of Israel. Not a darn thing. So I wouldn't put any stock in that. Nothing in the Bible that Lebanon conquers Israel. No. I don't see it. To Nick, I got your message, understood, thank you. I'll send you what you asked for later on, after I'm done on air. Let me check the chat here. Okay, so I'm Moshe, so please pray for me and my wife. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing. Pray for our finances, and pray for better videos. Pray for the Lord to keep illuminating me as to what's going on and opening up the prophecies and tying them into current events. And pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues. Come here. Here's the Queen Yafa. Say hello. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and make sure you're subscribed, so when the eggs hit the fan, and they're going to hit the fan, I'll be doing live streams at unusual times and hours to update you, as long as we have internet and capability, electricity and internet. Pray our internet stays up, and our electricity and water stays up, you'd be surprised what Jehovah can do if you ask him. You have not because you ask not. Ask. Be surprised what he can do. He's not out to punish us. So, and he probably would like to see you get notified as to what's going on. So until we break bread in Jerusalem or the Galilee, I am going to be out, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. Thank you, and thank you for your offerings.